On the surface, Amaka appeared virtuous and focused, the kind of daughter any family would be proud of. Yet, behind the warm smiles and good grades, Amaka hid a secret life. Late at night, when her roommates thought she was studying or asleep, Amaka would dress up and slip out into the city. Amaka was a young woman known for her gentle manners and bright smiles. In her community, everyone believed she was a model of good behavior. To her parents, she was the obedient daughter who called every evening from campus. To her neighbors, she was the polite girl who always helped with groceries. To her lecturers at university in Abuja, she was a diligent final year student who never missed a class. On the surface, Amaka appeared virtuous and focused, the kind of daughter any family would be proud of. Yet, behind the warm smiles and good grades, Amaka hid a secret life. Late at night, when her roommates thought she was studying or asleep, Amaka would dress up and slip out into the city. She wore fashionable dresses, high heels, and expensive perfume that clung to her skin. She would quietly leave the student hostel and take a taxi to luxury hotels and private residences around Abuja. There, in the shadows away from praying eyes, Amaka met with wealthy married men who paid for her company. It was a double life that she managed with careful lies and clever planning. By day, she was a humble student living on pocket money and scholarships. By night, she became someone else entirely, a mistress of wealthy patrons, trading her youth and beauty for the money that funded her lavish tastes. It had started innocently enough, or so she told herself. In her second year of university, Amaka had struggled to pay for a new laptop and textbooks. Her father's business was slow that year, and the family could not send much money. Frustrated by watching her classmates flaunt new phones and fashionable clothes, Amaka had gone to a popular club one night with some friends. There she met a much older man who bought her drinks and complimented her intelligence and beauty. He slipped his gold embossed card into her hand at the end of the night, offering to assist if in case she ever needed help. Desperate and curious, Amaka called him a week later. He became her first sponsor, a married businessman from Lagos who visited Abuja often. He paid her rent for a nicer off-campus apartment and gave her enough money to live comfortably in exchange for secret evenings together when he was in town. What started as one-time help quickly became a way of life. Amaka discovered how easy it was to charm wealthy men and how generous they could be. Over the years, she grew more entangled in this hidden lifestyle. She became adept at lying to her family about the source of her new clothes and gadgets. She always smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, I saved up from my internship," or "It was a gift from a friend." Her friends at school noticed her sudden wealth, but she deflected their questions with vague answers. In truth, Amaka enjoyed the money and the gifts. She told herself she wasn't hurting anyone. These men were rich and often lonely, and she was just making them happy for a while. It felt like a harmless exchange, a secret that belonged only to her. Still, a part of Amaka felt guilty at times. Raised in a devout Christian household, she knew her parents would be heartbroken to learn what she was doing. Sometimes after a night out, she would come back to her apartment in the early dawn, wash off her makeup, and sit on her bed feeling hollow. She would whisper prayers for forgiveness, promising herself that once she graduated and found a job, she would stop. But then morning came, and with it, the lure of easy money to maintain the lifestyle she had grown accustomed to. She wore designer handbags, used the latest smartphone, and even sent money home to her parents, claiming it was scholarship stipends. Her parents were proud of her success and her ability to manage money well, not knowing its true source. One bright afternoon, towards the end of her final semester, Amaka attended a high-profile business conference in one of Abuja's five-star hotels. She had not originally planned to be there. She was neither a business student nor particularly interested in economics. But one of her older friends, a fellow sugar baby, had invited her along. Many rich men would be there. Her friend had winked. It's a good place to network. Amaka had dressed modestly but elegantly, in a fitted blue dress that highlighted her figure without being too revealing. She walked through the grand lobby of the hotel, marble floors shining under her heels, and felt a thrill of excitement. Among the crowd of corporate executives and officials, she saw opportunities. Inside the conference hall, waiters moved about with trays of drinks. Suits and traditional outfits mingled as people exchanged business cards and small talk. Amaka stayed by her friend's side initially, listening politely as they chatted with a middle-aged banker who couldn't keep his eyes off the young women. As the evening progressed, Amaka felt more at ease. She even struck up a conversation with a kindly-looking man about the keynote speech, making sure to appear both intelligent and charming. It was during a coffee break that she first noticed Chief Omeigo. He stood out effortlessly in the crowd, tall and dignified. He wore a flowing white agbada, a traditional Nigerian robe with gold embroidery. His cap was tilted slightly, and he had an air of authority that made others step aside respectfully when he walked by. Amaka guessed he was in his early 60s, though his face was smooth and youthful for his age. There was a confidence in his stance, the assured presence of someone extremely wealthy and used to being catered to. People seemed eager to speak with him, addressing him as chief. Amaka's friend leaned into her ears. "That's Chief Omeigo," she whispered. "He's one of the richest Igbo businessmen in this country. He deals in oil and real estate. Very powerful man." There was a note of awe in her friend's voice. Amaka watched as Chief Omeigo laughed heartily at something another man said and patted the man's back in a friendly way. Though he was older, there was something magnetic about him. His eyes were sharp and lively as they scanned the room until they landed on Amaka. Their gaze met briefly. Amaka felt a jolt in her stomach, a strange mixture of nervousness and intrigue. Chief Omeigo held her gaze for a moment longer than was polite, his lips coiling into a slight smile. Amaka quickly looked away, pretending to be engrossed in a pamphlet she held. Her heart beat a little faster. She had encountered confident older men before, but none had looked at her quite like this, as if he could see beyond her innocent facade. Moments later, as Amaka sipped a glass of orange juice, she sensed someone approach. Chief Omeigo stood beside her, a warm smile on his face. Up close, she noticed he wore an expensive gold wristwatch and a heavy signet ring on one finger. He carried the faint scent of expensive cologne mixed with something like sandalwood. "Hello, my dear. I don't believe we've met," he said in a rich, deep voice. His presence was imposing but polite. Amaka felt a flush creep up her cheeks. He was old enough to be her grandfather, yet here he was addressing her with a charming familiarity. She curtsied slightly out of habit, a sign of respect ingrained from childhood when greeting elders, and introduced herself. "Good evening, sir. My name is Amaka." "Ah, Amaka," Chief Omeigo repeated, his accent lilting softly on her name. "Such a beautiful name for a beautiful young woman. Are you enjoying the conference?" "Yes, I am, sir," she replied. She felt the weight of his gaze. There was a shrewd intelligence in his eyes that made her choose her words carefully. "It's been very enlightening." He nodded, picking up a fresh drink from a passing by waiters. Good. Education is the key for our youth." He paused, then added with a kind smile, "What do you study, my dear?" "I'm a student of economics at the University of Abuja." She lied smoothly. In truth, her course was literature, but she figured saying economics might align better with this crowd. She often found herself telling little lies to appear more appealing to these men, like claiming to have interests that matched theirs. "Impressive," Chief Omeigo said. "In my time, there were few women in that field." "You must be very hardworking." His compliment felt sincere, and Amaka relaxed slightly. They spoke for a few more minutes. He asked her about her family, and she mentioned being the eldest daughter of 3 children from a modest family in Enugu, though she omitted their financial struggles. He told her about his own youth, how he built his businesses from the ground up. He has a way of talking that was engaging. Every now and then, he slipped in a gentle joke that made her laugh. Amaka noticed others eyeing them. A young lady in the conversation with Chief Omeigo was definitely a notable sight, but Chief Omeigo seemed to ignore everyone else. Eventually, the conversation was interrupted by the conference resuming, and the crowd drifted back to their seats. Chief Omeigo lightly touched her elbow and handed her his business card. "It was a pleasure to meet you, Amaka. I would love to continue our conversation sometime. Please, feel free to call me anytime." He gave a slight bow of his head, then walked away to join a group of men in suits. Amaka stared at the business card in her hand. It was made of thick ivory paper with gold lettering. It displayed his full name, Chief Arinze Omeigo, chairman of Omeigo Group, along with multiple phone numbers and an email. Her heart fluttered with excitement. This was exactly the kind of opportunity her friend had hinted at. Chief Omeigo was far wealthier than any man she had ever been with. Her mind raced with possibilities. If she played her cards right, this could take her secret life to a whole new level. After the conference ended, Amaka could hardly contain her excitement. In the taxi home, her friend chatted about exchanging numbers with the banker, but Amaka's thoughts were on the business card, burning a hole in her purse. That night, alone in her small apartment, she managed what it might be like to be spoiled by someone as rich and powerful as Chief Omeigo. Perhaps he would buy her a car, take her on trips abroad, or set her up in luxurious flats. The possibilities were intoxicating. True to his word, the very next day she received a text message from an unknown number. "Hello, Amaka. This is Chief Omeigo. I trust you had a good night rest." Her hand trembled slightly as she typed back a polite response. He invited her to dinner later that week. Amaka agreed, butterflies fluttering in her stomach. They met at a high-end restaurant in Maitama, one of Abuja's most affluent districts. The restaurant was known for its exclusivity, a place where politicians and billionaires dined behind tinted glass windows. Amaka arrived in a modest black dress that her friend assured her looked classy. She had styled her hair neatly and wore just enough makeup to enhance her natural beauty. Even so, She felt a bit out of place among the expensive cars and elegantly dressed patrons. But when Chief Omeigo's chauffeur ushered her in, she lifted her head high, remembering to play the part of a confident young professional. Chief Omeigo greeted her at a private table with a broad smile. He wore a tailored navy blue suit this time, looking every bit a distinguished gentleman. As they sat, he ordered an impressive array of dishes: pepper soup, jollof rice, grilled fish with succulent pieces of beef, salads, and a bottle of fine red wine. Amaka was not used to such luxury. She found herself marveling at the porcelain plates and sparkling cutlery. Over dinner, conversation flowed easily. Chief Omeigo was surprisingly down to earth in his storytelling, despite the obvious gap in their age and status. He listened intently whenever Amaka spoke about her classes or her thoughts on current events, nodding and giving her his full attention. It made her feel seen and valued, something she hadn't realized she craved. He shared anecdotes of his travel to London and Dubai, and funny tales of his early business days when he was a young man struggling to make it. Amaka found herself laughing genuinely, her initial nervousness melting away. When the main course was cleared, Chief Omeigo leaned forward slightly. "Amaka, my dear, I must say, I am enjoying your company greatly," he said, his voice low and earnest. "It is rare to find someone so young who can hold such a thoughtful conversation. You are truly special." "Thank you, sir," she replied softly, lowering her eyes in a show of modesty, even as her heart swelled at the praise. "Please, call me Chief Omeigo, or just call me Chief. No need for sir," he chuckled. "It makes me feel old." She smiled. "Okay, Chief." He seemed pleased. "I hope we can become good friends," he said gently, resting his hand on hers on the table. His touch was light but possessive. "I would like to help you achieve your dreams, however I can. You mentioned an interest in maybe doing a master's degree after graduation." Amaka had indeed made up a small lie about considering a master's abroad. Now she nodded. "Yes, I've thought about it, but it's quite expensive." Chief Omeigo waved his free hand dismissively. "Don't let money be what stops you. A bright girl like you should study as far as she wants. If you need support, you have only to ask." Amaka's breath hitched. Was he implying what she thought? It sounded like he was offering to sponsor her education, or at least financially support her goals. Her mind immediately recalled similar conversations with other men, but none had been this bold this quickly. "That's very generous of you," she said carefully. "We barely knew each other, Chief." He smiled, his eyes crinkling. "I have a good feeling about you. In our culture, we say, "Odimma na-enye mgbakwunye." When something is good, you feel it right away. His slip into Igbo felt natural. It made Amaka feel a kinship. Her own parents often used such proverbs. She found herself smiling shyly. "I feel the same way, Chief. I'm grateful for your kindness." By the end of the night, Chief Omeigo had instructed his driver to take her home. In the car, Amaka replayed the evening in her mind. She touched the new iPhone he had unexpectedly gifted her during dessert, saying he couldn't have a friend using an old mobile phone. And she almost squealed with excitement. That phone alone was worth more than a semester's tuition. This was beyond what any previous benefactor had done on a first date. It seemed Chief Omeigo truly wanted to impress her. Over the next few weeks, their relationship intensified. Chief Omeigo called or texted her every day. He sent baskets of fruits and flowers to her apartment. He took her on shopping sprees at exclusive boutiques where he urged her to pick whatever she liked. Amaka amassed shoes, designer dresses, and jewelry, each item more expensive than the last. She was swept up in a whirlwind of luxury that left her both delighted and a bit dizzy. Emotionally, she told herself she was keeping things casual. He was decades older, after all, and married with grown children. She learned he had 3 sons, 2 of whom were older than her. She didn't expect anything more than a generous friendship, but Chief Omeigo had a way of making her feel special. He listened to her childhood stories with genuine interest, remembered small details about her life, and gave thoughtful advice about her future. There were moments late at night after she had spent an evening with him when she wondered if she was starting to care for him in a deeper way. It confused her. She had always kept emotional distance from her sugar daddies. But something about Chief Omeigo was different. He was charming, yet generous. Warm, yet at times she sensed a darkness of sadness behind his smiles. Physically, their relationship also progressed. Eventually, Amaka did sleep with Chief Omeigo in a night of passion at a private guest house he owned on the outskirts of the city. He was surprisingly energetic and gentle for his age, showering her with affection and compliments afterwards. Amaka felt triumph. She had secured a powerful benefactor who seemed totally engrossed with her. She believed she could handle whatever came with it, as she had with the past men. It was just an arrangement after all, a transactional relationship, even if wrapped in the guise of care. As the weeks turned into a couple of months, Amaka's life became more entwined with Chief Omeigo's orbit. He gave her a new apartment, a spacious 2-bedroom flat in a secure complex reserved for the elite. You need a comfortable place to study and relax, he insisted. She moved in secretly, telling her roommate she had family in town. She needed to stay with them. He also bought her a sleek black car after she casually mentioned how hard it was to get taxis at night. Now she could come and go more freely to see him. Amaka felt like she was living a dream. Never had she imagined having such things at just 22 years old. She kept her wits about her though. She still attended classes and submitted assignments on time, determined to finish her degree. In front of her family and lecturers, she maintained her facade of a normal student, but every time her phone buzzed with a message from Chief, she felt a secret thrill. Yet, along with the excitement, there were the first whispers of unease, small disquieting things that Amaka noticed, then brushed aside. For example, one evening she was at Chief Omeigo's grand mansion at Asokoro, an opulent neighborhood of Abuja. It was her first visit to his home. The mansion was enormous, with tall gates and a long driveway lined by sculpted hedges. Inside, marble floors gleamed and chandeliers cast warm light. He had a small staff of servants who treated him with great deference and greeted Amaka politely. That evening after dinner, Chief Omeigo stepped out to attend to a sudden visitor. He left Amaka in the living room where they had been watching a movie. Bored, she wandered around the room, admiring the expensive art on the walls and family portraits. One portrait was of Chief Omeigo and a woman she assumed was his wife. A beautiful, elegant lady in traditional dress, though ugly. Amaka had not heard much about her. In another photo, Chief Omeigo stood with 3 grown men, his sons, likely. As she examined a painting that depicted a serene village scene, she heard a faint humming sound, like distant singing. Curious, Amaka followed the sound out of the living room. It led her towards a closed door down a hallway. The humming was low and rhythmic, although like a chant. She realized it might be a prayer or song. A bit nervously, since she was alone wandering his house, she put her ear to the door. The sound stopped abruptly. All she could hear then was her own breathing. She waited a moment, wondering if someone was inside the room. Perhaps a radio had been left on. Before she could decide, she felt a hand on her shoulder. She jumped, her heart pounding. It was Chief Omeigo, who had just returned and found her. He looked calm, but his eyes held a strange intensity. "Is everything all right, my dear?" he asked quietly. His hand remained on her shoulder, not harshly, but firmly, as if to guide her away. I heard something," Amaka stammered, feeling caught. She tried to smile. "Maybe I got lost looking for the bathroom." Chief Omeigo's gaze flickered to the door she had been listening at, then back to her. For a moment, his face seemed shadowed, the warm amiability gone, but it turned so quickly. She wondered if she imagined it. He chuckled lightly. "The bathroom is the other way, my dear. This house is too big. I know. Come, I'll show you." He steered her gently back towards the living area, not opening the mysterious door. "The staff sometimes play music in the back rooms while they walk," he said casually. "Perhaps that is what you heard." Amaka nodded, though something about the humming had felt different, not like a radio song at all. It had made the hairs on her arms stand on end. Still, she did not want to pry and upset him. She let it go and soon forgot about it when he returned with playful humor to their movie night. Another time, as they sat in his mansion's garden on one late afternoon, Chief Omeigo excused himself to take a phone call. Amaka waited, sipping the chilled champagne he had poured. She admired the manicured garden and sighed with contentment. Then her eyes shifted to a corner of the yard where something odd caught her eye. A small structure like a shed or perhaps a shrine. It was partially hidden by trees, but she saw colorful fabrics tied on a pole and what looked like an animal's skull hanging under the eaves. It was startling and out of place in the otherwise pristine compound. When Chief returned, she pointed to it with a curious smile. "Chief, what is that?" "It looks almost like a little shrine." He followed her gaze, and for the briefest second, she thought he looked annoyed, but he laughed, though it sounded a bit forced. "Oh, that's just an old storage shed from my grandfather's time. He was a traditional chief and kept some ceremonial things. Don't worry about it. It's nothing interesting." "You have an animal skull there. It frightened me," Amaka admitted with a small laugh, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling. Chief patted her hand reassuringly. "It's just a decoration, my dear. Perhaps I should have removed it if it disturbs you." "No, it's fine," she said quickly, feeling a bit silly for bringing it up. Still, as days passed, little things like that piled up in the back of her mind. A peculiar smell one night in his car, like something burnt, which he dismissed as a problem with the engine. Or the way one of his servants, an elderly woman, had looked at Amaka strangely and muttered something under her breath that sounded like a warning in Igbo. When Amaka asked what she said, the woman quickly shook her head and walked away. Despite these odd occurrences, nothing concrete was wrong, and the lavish gifts and attention from Chief Omeigo were very real. Amaka told herself that every relationship had its quirks. Who was she to question the habits of a man as old and established as Chief? He cared for her and treated her kindly. She reasoned that was what mattered. However, The first undeniable sign that something was truly amiss came one night, about 3 months into their relationship. Amaka woke up in her luxurious new apartment with a sharp throbbing pain in her chest. She gasped, sitting up in the darkness and clutching at her nightshirt. It felt like her breasts were on fire. An intense burning ached deep inside. Her first thought was fear, that maybe she might be having some severe medical issues. She fumbled for the bedside lamp, and when the light flooded the room, she looked down at herself and froze in horror. Her breasts, normally modest and perky, were swollen noticeably. They looked engorged, almost like how a nursing mother's might when full of milk. But Amaka was not pregnant, or had she ever had a child. The veins under the skin looked pronounced, and there was a slight reddish flush, as if inflamed. When she gingerly touched them, they felt heavy and sore. A small stain of wetness had seeped through her shirt. Alarmed, she ran to the bathroom and licked her top. Her nipples were leaking a thin, yellowish fluid. Panic coursed through her. What was happening to her? Was she sick? Did she have some kind of infection or rare disease? Her mind raced through possibilities. Could it be a side effect of something she ate or drank? That day, she had lunch on campus. Nothing unusual. She hadn't been with Chief for 2 days, as he was traveling. So it wasn't something from him recently. Perhaps a hormonal imbalance, but it had come on so suddenly. The pain was intense enough that she took some painkillers and sat under a hot shower, hoping to soothe the ache. Eventually, the pain dulled into a sore throb, and the leaking stopped after a while. Exhausted and frightened, Amaka coiled up on her bed until morning. She told herself she would go to the campus clinic first thing tomorrow morning. At dawn, she dressed carefully in a loose sweater to hide her swollen chest and took a taxi to the university clinic. The doctor on duty examined her with a frown. By then, the swelling had reduced a little, but it was still evident. Amaka tried to explain all her symptoms without revealing too much. She mentioned severe pain and spontaneous lactation. The doctor asked a series of embarrassing questions. Was she sexually active? Yes, she murmured, feeling her cheeks burn. Could she be pregnant? No, she had just had her period the previous week, and she always insisted on protection with her partners. Had she taken any hormones or drugs? No, never. Did she have a history of breast disease in her family? None. In the end, the clinic doctor was puzzled. She suggested it might be an infection like mastitis, although that usually happened to breastfeeding women, or perhaps a hormonal fluctuation. She prescribed some antibiotics and told Amaka to use cold compresses and to come back if it worsened. Feeling only slightly reassured, Amaka returned home with the medication. She also texted Chief Omeigo about it, but downplayed the situation, saying she had a bit of a chest infection. He called immediately, concern evident in his tone. He insisted she see a specialist at a private hospital, even offering to fly in someone if needed. Amaka, not wanting to seem too troubled, said she would if it didn't improve in a few days. For a short time, the drug seemed to help. The swelling went down a bit, and the pain became bearable. Just a soreness that lingered. Amaka breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe it was just a random infection after all. But relief did not last. A week later, the night before she was to submit her final project paper, the pain came back with a vengeance. This time it was worse. Amaka awoke screaming, clutching her chest as tears streamed down her face. It felt as if needles were stabbing deep into her flesh. When she turned on the light, She saw that her breasts were even larger than before, swollen out, and now the liquid that dripped from her nipples was tinged pink with blood. Her sheets had wet spots, and she was terrified to see the pale yellow fluid mixed with streaks of red staining her night dress. Crying and shaking, Amaka reached for her phone and called Chief Omeigo. It was past midnight, but he answered on the first ring. "Chief, I'm scared," she sobbed into the phone, telling him of the pain and bleeding discharge. "Stay calm, my dear," he said, though his voice had a strange tone she couldn't place, almost like fear or anger. "I'm sending my driver to take you to the hospital right now. I'll meet you there." Within half an hour, Amaka was in the emergency room of one of the best private hospitals in Abuja, with Chief Omeigo by her side. The doctors took her for tests, blood work, scans. She lay in the cool white radiology room, staring up at the ceiling in a daze, scarcely believing this was happening to her. The painkillers they gave her dulled the worst of the pain, but she felt sore and weak. Chief Omeigo stayed through the night, a constant comforting presence. He held her hand at times, stroked her hair when she whimpered in pain, and spoke firmly with the doctors to do everything they could. Watching him, Amaka felt a rush of gratitude and emotion. He was a man who truly cared for her well-being, she thought. Even in this horrible moment, he was by her side. Perhaps this was more than just an arrangement to him, after all. Maybe he really did love her in his own way. By morning, the immediate crisis had passed. Her pain was managed and the bleeding had stopped, but the doctors were still baffled. Her scan results showed no tumors, no clear cause. They mentioned it could be a rare autoimmune disorder or severe hormonal imbalance, and took samples to test for everything from prolactin levels to infections. In the meantime, they gave her medications to reduce the inflammation and stop the discharge. Exhausted, Amaka was allowed to go home with Chief Omeigo later that day, with an appointment to return in a week for follow-up. Chief insisted she would not stay alone in her apartment while unwell. He took her to his mansion, setting her up in a plush guest bedroom and personally ensuring she had soup and tea. At the mansion, in the moments when she was alone, a deep unease settled in her bones. She recalled the fear in Chief Omeigo's voice on the phone. Was he simply worried? Or was there something more? And those odd incidents, the humming behind the door, the shrine in the garden, the servant's muted words, they all crowded back in her memory now, seeming less like random quirks and more like pieces of a dark puzzle. One afternoon, Amaka woke from a nap in the guest room. The house was quiet. She felt a bit better and decided to step out for some fresh air. Wandering down the hallway, she found herself again near that mysterious door where she had heard humming weeks ago. Her heart started to beat faster. A thought occurred. What if something in there held answers? It was an irrational idea. Logically, her illness was medical, but her instinct told her something about Chief Omeigo and his home was off. Glancing around to ensure no one was watching, Amaka reached for the doorknob. To her surprise, it turned easily. The door was not locked. She hesitated, then quietly opened it and slipped inside. The room was dim lit only by slivers of daylight from a small high window. As her eyes adjusted, Amaka realized she was in a private study or office. There was a large mahogany desk and shelves lined with books. But the first thing that hit her was a scent, the same sandalwood and faint burnt aroma she had smelled a couple of times around Chief. It was stronger here, as if embedded in the very walls. On the desk lay an open ledger and some papers. Curiosity mingled with guilt as she stepped closer. She knew she shouldn't snoop, but she felt compelled. The ledger was filled with names and dates, as if tracking something, possibly business dealings. It didn't hold her attention long before her gaze fell on something far more strange. A wooden carving displayed on a stand in the corner. It was a figurine of a woman, carved roughly out of dark wood, maybe a foot tall. The figure's features were simplistic, but its chest was exaggerated. Huge round breasts that looked swollen. The artist had painted streaks of red down the front of the figure. The sight made Amaka's blood run cold. As she stepped towards it, she noticed around the figurine were small bowls, like a shrine setup. One bowl held some kind of dried leaves or herbs. Another looked like it contained ashes. On the floor, in front of the wooden figure, there was a dark stain on the concrete, as if something had spilled and seeped in. A sudden wave of nausea hit her. The figure's swollen chest, the red paint, it was too much like what she was experiencing. It couldn't be a coincidence, could it? It was as if someone had made a carved doll of her suffering. A wild, terrifying thought sparked. Was this some kind of ritual item? Did Chief Omeigo know? That was insane, she told herself, but her heart pounded wildly, screaming that something was very, very wrong here. As she leaned in, trying to examine the figurine without touching it, a voice spoke from behind her, nearly stopping her heart. "I see you found my private sanctuary," said Chief Omeigo quietly from the doorway. Amaka whirled around, nearly knocking over one of the bowls with her foot. Chief Omeigo stood in the doorway, his face obscured partly by shadow. Her heart thundered in her chest. She felt caught like a thief. "I'm sorry. I was just," Amaka stammered, backing away from the figurine. Her eyes darted between Chief Omeigo's unreadable face and the wooden carved figurine with swollen chest. Chief Omeigo stepped inside, quietly closing the door behind him. In his right hand, he held a necklace strung with small pale objects that looked like bones. His voice was soft but chilling. "This room is off limits, Amaka," he said. "You shouldn't be here." I heard everything," she managed to say, though that was a weak excuse for snooping. She felt a surge of fear. There was no point pretending she hadn't seen the shrine. "Chief, what is this? I don't understand." He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he slowly moved towards her. Amaka retreated until her back pressed against the heavy desk. The carved figurine loomed to her side. Chief Omeigo's eyes flickered to the idol and then back to her. In the dim light, he looked like a stranger. Gone was the jovial, caring benefactor. The man before her had a cold, almost predatory air. "You've been curious, poking around," he said in a low voice. "That curiosity is dangerous." Amaka's mouth went dry. A terrible realization was dawning on her. My sickness," she whispered, throat tight. "It started after I met you. And this figure, it looks like..." She couldn't bring herself to say it looks like me. "What have you done to me?" Chief Omeigo let out a slow sigh and shook his head. "There are many things a young girl like you wouldn't understand about the world. About power, and the sacrifices needed to keep that power." He stepped closer until he was just an arm's length away. Amaka pressed harder against the desk, wishing she could melt into it and disappear. "Please, Chief, I'm so scared," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. "If I offended you, I am sorry. I will leave and never bother you again. Just undo whatever this is. I'll give back everything. I swear." Just make this stop. Her voice cracked with desperation. For a brief moment, Chief Omeigo's expression softened as he looked at her tear-streaked face. He gently lifted his free hand to cup her chin, tilting her face up. His touch almost felt tender. She felt no comfort from it. "My dear, you enjoyed the luxury, did you not?" he said quietly. "The money, the gifts, the life I gave you, you took it all happily." Amaka's heart pounded. Was he blaming her? I didn't know there was a price," she replied, voice trembling. "If I had known, I never would have." He hushed her by lightly placing a finger on her lips. The condescending, almost affectionate gesture made her skin crawl. "No one never knows," he said. "That's the way it must be. You see, nothing in this world comes free, Amaka. I have great wealth, great influence, but such things require sacrifice." Her stomach clenched. Sacrifice. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. She glanced at the figurine again and noticed at its base something she hadn't seen before. A small photograph, squinting in the low light. She realized it was a picture of her, smiling and innocent, probably taken off her social media or somewhere without her knowing. She felt sick. "Sacrifice? What do you mean?" she whispered, though she felt already knew. Chief Omeigo followed her gaze to the photograph and idol. He spoke almost wistfully. "There are old ancient forces in this world. My dear, in my youth, I was initiated into secrets beyond your imagination. The great spirit I serve, an Alusi, grants me and my enterprises prosperity, protection, even longevity, but it demands periodic offerings." He paused, as if considering his next words carefully. The offering must be something pure and valuable. Youth, vitality, innocence. His eyes drifted to her chest, and Amaka felt exposed and violated. She crossed her arms over herself instinctively. A small cold smile formed on his lips. In exchange, the spirit takes, well, it takes the essence it deserves from you. At this, Amaka's blood ran cold. She could hardly breathe. "You are saying my pain, my sickness, it's because of some ritual you did? How could you?" Her voice rose in anguish, anger breaking through her fear. Chief Omeigo's expression hardened slightly. "Calm yourself," he said. "This is beyond your judgment. Many great men do far worse for the success I have. At least, I made sure you were comfortable and happy for a time. I truly do care for you, Amaka. That is why this must hurt me as well, in some way." Amaka felt tears spilling out of her. She could not believe what she was hearing. It was monstrous, insane. She slapped his hand away from her face and tried to push past him. "You are evil," she cried. "I am leaving." She managed 2 steps towards the door, but Chief Omeigo moved with surprising speed for a man his age. He caught her by the arm and yanked her back. His grip was iron around her waist. "Let me go!" Amaka screamed, struggling. But for a man in his 60s, his strength was startling. He easily forced her back against the desk. Papers fluttered to the floor. "Don't make this harder, girl," he said through his clenched teeth. Gone was any pretense of gentleness. His eyes flashed with a dangerous light. "It is too late. What is done is done." Amaka winced as his finger dug painfully into her arm. Her mind raced. She had to get out, to get help. With her free hand, she grabbed the only thing within reach, the small wooden figurine. She held it at Chief Omeigo with all her might. He let go of her arm to shield his face. The figurine struck his shoulder and bounced to the floor, one of the bowls toppling and spilling ashes across the tiles. "You little fool," he snarled, momentarily losing his composure. Amaka seized the chance and darted around him. Flinging the door open, she dashed into the corridor, adrenaline leading her speed. "Help!" she cried out, running blindly down the hall. "Somebody help me!" But the house seemed deserted in that moment. She could hear Chief Omeigo's footsteps behind her, fast and unrelenting. She reached the main living area, her heart hammering, and made for the front door. Just as she grasped the handle, a strong arm encircled her waist from behind, dragging her back. Amaka screamed, kicking her legs wildly. Chief Omeigo hauled her backward, and she saw two of the household staff standing at the far end of the room watching with alarm. The old woman housekeeper and a male security guard. They did not move to intervene. The guard only stepped forward after a nod from Chief. "Be still," Chief Omeigo hissed in her ear. Amaka struggled, tears streaming, but he was too strong. The guard came and took hold of her legs so she couldn't kick. Together, they subdued her. The old housekeeper wrung her hands, muttering something that sounded like a prayer. "Please let me go," Amaka begged, sobbing, as the men forced her down onto a sofa. Her chest heaved, and she felt a hot, stabbing pain flare in her breast again, as if the stress was aggravating the cause. She cried out in pain, clutching herself. Chief Omeigo mentioned the guard to keep holding her shoulders down. He bent over her, breathing hard but composed. "I'm sorry it came to this, my dear, truly." His voice was low but firm. "But you cannot leave, not now." Amaka shook her head in disbelief. "You can't keep me prisoner. People will look for me," she rasped. Chief Omeigo considered her words, then nodded slowly. "Yes, they might. We will have to handle that carefully." He stood up straight and addressed the guard. "Take her to the guest room and make sure she doesn't come out. Lock the door. If she tries anything, call me immediately." The guard lifted Amaka with ease. She was too drained to resist now. Waves of pain and panic were washing over her, making her limbs weak. As the guard carried her towards the guest room down the hall, Amaka turned her head towards the old housekeeper who trailed behind, looking at her with pity. "Nne, Biko, Mama, please, help me." Amaka pleaded through sobs, reaching out a hand towards the woman. The housekeeper's eyes brimmed with tears, but she merely shook her head and kept her distance. Under her breath, the woman whispered, "I warned you, child. I warned you." Amaka didn't understand what she meant by that, perhaps referring to the muted caution that day in Igbo that Amaka hardly fully caught. Before she could say more, the guest room door opened and the guard set her inside. Chief Omeigo stood at the threshold, the necklace of bones still dangling in his hand. Her eyes met his one last time, searching for any mercy. "Please, Chief, I'm like a daughter to you. You don't have to do this," she whimpered. He gave a weary sigh. If only pleading could change things. He then stepped back and the heavy door closed between them. Amaka heard the key turn in the lock, sealing her in. She collapsed onto the bed, chest aching and mind racing. This couldn't be real. It felt like a nightmare from which she desperately wanted to wake up. Outside, she heard muffled voices, Chief Omeigo giving instructions to the staff, perhaps telling them she was ill and not to be disturbed. She caught a few words, for her own good, and very sick, She realized he was likely creating a cover story, painting her as mentally unstable or feverish, so that if she screamed, no one would take it seriously. When the voices faded, silence fell. Amaka was left alone in the dim guest room with only her raged breathing for company. Pain paused in her chest, though less sharply now, more a constant throbbing reminder of her doom. She carefully touched herself and winced. Her breast felt swollen under her shirt again, heavy and tender. Damp spots formed where fluid leaked anew. It seemed the curse didn't care that she was locked up. It continues its dreadful work inside her. God, what have I done? She whispered into the stillness, hugging herself. She rocked back and forth on the bed, tears flowing freely. In her mind, she saw her mother's kind face, her father's proud smile, her siblings who looked up to her. None of them had any idea of the danger she was in. They all thought she was a good girl in school, safe and sound. Would she ever see them again? Or would she die here, alone in this glided cage? Hours passed. Amaka wasn't sure how long she sat there, trembling. At one point, the housekeeper quietly entered with a tray of food and water. The older woman wouldn't meet Amaka's eyes as she set the tray on a side table. She also placed a plastic bucket on the floor and some towels, likely for Amaka to clean herself or use the bucket if she needed to relieve herself. Since she was locked in, Amaka croaked out a please, but the housekeeper only shook her head sorrowfully and left without a word, locking the door again. Despair weighed on Amaka. She realized with a sinking feeling that Chief Omeigo probably intended to keep her locked away until the curse fully ran its course. Until she died from it. He had said he would ensure she got a proper hospital record of illness. Maybe once she was near death, he would dump her at a hospital to let her perish officially under medical care. All traces of foul play hidden. Her name would become just another tragic story. A young woman struck down by an inexplicable disease. Evening came, and with it in the shadows, in the room lightened. The pain in her chest spiked intermittently, causing Amaka to double over and weep silently. The medications from earlier must have worn off. She rummaged through the bedside drawer, hoping to find the pills she had been given at the hospital. To her surprise, her purse was there with those medicines. Perhaps in their scramble, they left her some belongings. With shaking hands, she swallowed 2 painkillers, dry, not caring if it was too soon. She checked her purse for her phone. It was gone. Chief Omeigo must have taken it, or one of the staff did. She had no way to call for help. She truly was trapped and isolated. In her agony, Amaka did the only thing she could think of. She prayed. It had been a long time. She prayed with sincerity. Often, she uttered rote prayers to appease her conscience. But now, every word poured from her heart like a flood. God, I know I have sinned. I know I've been living wrong. Please, forgive me. Help me. I don't want to die like this. She cried softly into the darkness. Hands clasped together. If this is punishment for my wrongs, have mercy. Please, deliver me from this evil. She prayed until her throat was hoarse and no more tears would come. And in that still moment, after her sobs quieted, she thought she heard something, a faint scraping at the door. Amaka held her breath. Was someone there? She rose unsteadily, every part of her body protesting, and stepped closer. Hello? She whispered through the door, afraid to be loud. There was a quiet shuffling sound, and then she heard the old housekeeper's voice, barely above a breath. "My child, are you there?" "Yes," Amaka whispered urgently. "Mama, please, help me. I beg you." A soft sob came from the other side. "I'm so sorry," the woman said in a trembling voice. "I saw this coming. I warned you that day, but it was not clear enough. I cannot do much. Chief has forbidden anyone to talk to you or let you out." Amaka pressed her palm against the cool wood of the door, as if reaching out. "Please, just let me out. I won't tell anyone you did it. I will run away, far, far away." The housekeeper hesitated. "If I let you out and he finds you, he will kill me and likely still find you. He has ways. But maybe you have a chance if you leave Abuja entirely." Hearing hope in those words, Amaka's heart leaped. "I will. I swear. I will go far. He won't find me." A long pause, then the metallic click of a key turning in a lock. Amaka gently tried the knob and it gave way. She opened the door a crack. The hallway was dark, lit only by a single lamp. The old housekeeper stood there, tears on her cheeks, holding a finger to her lips. "Hurry," she whispered, pressing the key into Amaka's hand and pointing toward a side door that led out to the kitchen and servant entrance. Go before the guard comes back. He's eating dinner now." Amaka felt a surge of gratitude and fear. She barely managed to breathe. "Thank you," before slipping out into the hallway. Her legs were shaky, but adrenaline pushed her on. The housekeeper urged her quietly, "Leave the compound and head to the back gate. It's usually not locked. And pray, my dear, only God can truly save you now." Those words echoed in Amaka's mind as she crept through the kitchen and out into the night air. The compound was quiet. Somewhere in the main house, she heard a faint sound of a television. Perhaps Chief Omeigo was occupied or resting. Keeping to the shadows, Amaka hurried across the yard, biting back whimpers each time the motion jarred her sore chest. She found the small back gate in the high perimeter wall. It was used by staff to go to the market, she guessed. It was indeed unlocked. The gate creaked softly as she pushed it open just enough to slip through. A moment later, she was outside the compound, standing in a quiet side street. Night had fallen fully. The street lights cast a dim glow. Amaka realized she had no phone, no money. Her purse had been left behind in the room in her rush. But none of that mattered compared to being free of that accursed house. The cool night air on her face felt like deliverance itself. She gathered her bearings and started walking quickly, trying to put distance between her and Chief Omeigo's mansion. Each step she took away, however, seemed to ignite a new pain inside her chest, as if an invisible chain tied her to that house and strained as she left. She clenched her teeth and pressed on, one arm across her bosom. After a few blocks, the pain became almost unbearable. She ducked into a dark alley between two fenced houses and leaned against the wall, panting. A trickle of warm fluid ran down under her dress from her breasts, and she realized they were bleeding again. She felt dizzy, but forced herself to stay upright. "Not now. Keep going," she urged herself. She needed to find help, or at least a safe place. She considered going to her apartment first, but that was several kilometers away, and likely one of the first places Chief would check when he discovered her gone. Also, she didn't have her car or any way to get there quickly. Maybe a taxi. but she had no money to pay one at the moment.